something. And I will tell you that the relationships that I have now with those people, when I walk into a room, we still see each other, but it's not as disingenuous. And I don't mean that it's not as shallow. It's not as me trying to be seen. It's the relationships that come to me now are mean more to me. Because
That's interesting.
Yeah, isn't that weird? And I almost, when my wife said it to me, I was almost a little off put by it. But I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand. I've always been kind of a butterfly, like you just said, and we go into these places, and I would challenge you to keep smiling and to keep being who you are and put those halos on those people, but don't slink into a corner, but just let the people come to you. And I think that you'll find that the people who come to you regularly are the people who really you engage with on a much higher plane. People will come to you, but those people who will come to you naturally and quickly are those ones that will probably have like energy and fill your bucket.
Welcome to the Perpetual Growth Podcast with Zach Palmer, the show where we explore the strategies, insights, and stories that empower you to grow your business, strengthen your relationships, and elevate your health. Because growth isn't just about what you achieve, it's about who you become along the way. Now, today I am thrilled to welcome a longtime friend of mine from my hometown, Drew Graham. Drew is the owner of CE Everything, a professional voiceover service where Drew serves as the artist, editor, and head chef. One of Drew's core tenets is that life is a story. Let it be heard. So let's dive in and take another step on your journey to perpetual growth. Drew, my friend, welcome. I am super excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Zach. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, if you guys can't tell, Drew, and it'll start to take effect very shortly. Drew has one of those incredible hypnotic voices that you just can't get enough of. Like, I put him right up there with like those Morgan Freemans and those other iconic, it's like it's one of those people where you just want to sit and listen to him tell stories all day long. So Drew, I
love what I get paid for now, man.
First impact. Oh, sugar. Of course, I unplug my headphones and all my excitement here.
No, don't worry about it. It's all good. You can't even hear what I'm saying. So anyway, so that's what I know about Zach. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was very nice of you. That was quite a lead in, and to be anywhere in the ballpark, even in the realm of Morgan Freeman, to drop that's super nice. Thank you.
No, it's just I remember the good old days. I mean, being on radio shows together, and you were interviewing me and all the good stuff. But you always had that your voice. It's one of those standout features, which makes sense. As soon as I realized that you'd moved into this direction of voiceovers, I'm like, well, that is in total alignment. That's congruent.
That's absolutely, and it's one of those things. It's like, why didn't I do this sooner? It's you kind of fight the things that are almost natural in this growth to becoming who you are authentically. So you fight that a lot. I think.
Isn't that interesting? Like, it's one of my mentors says that what you resist persists. And the irony is the things that we're resisting are more often than not, if not every time, the thing that we need to lean into to reach our next level of growth or fulfillment or joy or impact or whatever thing you want to label it as.
Yeah, I concur wholeheartedly. And I wonder, I'm sure that there are reams and reams of journals about why that is. But I have found that the older that I get, that whole thing about wisdom and growing into yourself, I'm learning to adapt to that and to embrace it more. I think that's kind of really what propelled me into this world of VO. Just starting out, and not really just starting out, I've been doing it for about 5 or 6 years, but really it's been part of my anatomy and part of who I am for 35 years. And it's, again, it's one of those things. It's why didn't I just evolve into this sooner? Because it just fits naturally, right? And I create my own work. I market myself. I brand myself. I do all that stuff, and it's all about me. And so then I'm in control, and it gives me the freedom to do what I want when I want to do it, and work as hard as I want.
Yep. No, I mean, it's fascinating though, because I think so often it's easy to beat ourselves up with, why did I not figure this out sooner? Why didn't I start investing sooner? Why didn't I do this or that? But the reality is it's happening when it's meant to happen.
Yeah,
The
you
more that
are
we
where you're
fight the
supposed to
past,
be in this
exactly.
moment.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
We
totally.
can't change the past, so we might as well create an empowering future. Now, on that note, Drew, I would love if you would share with the audience, just talk a little bit about your story history. Where did you start in business? How did it bring you to where you are today? And what were some of those major turning points, like the milestones, the challenges, the successes, the
Sure,
tipping points that
sure.
brought you
Kind
there?
of, I would almost classify myself as a Renaissance employee slash employer,
Mhm.
worker bee, because I've done a little bit of everything. I think that when I first started in the working world, I was just service industry guy, and then I moved into some corporate stuff, whether it be marketing and branding in an agency in Seattle, where I was a traffic manager. So I kind of made sure that everything was moving in a way that it was supposed to. That's actually where I first got turned on to voiceover work.
Mm.
Um, and then, I adapted into some manual labor stuff. And then when I moved to Bellingham, because I had heard a radio station that when I grew up in Squim on the Olympic Peninsula, and we always listened to this radio station. We only got a handful of stations, and one of them was located in Bellingham, where I am now. And it was like a top 40 CHR kind of a station. And then I tuned it in after kind of leaving that world of music and evolving into what I really like to listen to. I tuned it back in one time just on a whim, and I heard the station, and they were playing my music. They were playing stuff that I liked, and at the time it was like Pink Floyd and Dave Matthews and Blues Traveler and Tom Petty, and they were playing some classic rock with some new stuff. And so I just got on the phone and I asked the program director there. I'm like, hey, are you guys looking for any employees? I love what you've done to the station. And I'll never forget, Julie Marletto was her name. And she goes, do you have an air check? And there's this long pause. And I finally said, well, what's an air check? And she goes, oh, and then she told me what it was. And so long story short, I ended up getting a job there in Bellingham doing that. And so I was at the radio station for about 12 to 13 years, just shy of 13 years. And then I started working as the development director for the Bellingham Chamber of Commerce, which is where you and I we had met before that, but this is where you and I kind of connected, and I did that for 3 or 4 years. And then I went and did some audio production and some video production stuff way before live streaming was cool. Like in the early 2000s, we were kind of at the forefront of doing some live streaming for large corporations and some conferences around the globe. Got to travel a little bit and do that, and then I fell into. I missed being on the air. I missed utilizing my voice as my tool, the gift I was given, really kind of putting it to good use. And then I did some school bus driving, which I still do, and I actually love. More than I ever thought I would. And then I started this about 5 years ago, right before COVID started. I built a studio and started getting some education and mentoring, being mentored by some folks that I trust and appreciate. And they taught me the biz, and here I sit.
That's amazing. Amazing. It's just so funny too, because it's been over 20 years that we've known each other.
Yeah.
I was just a kid in business when I was first
Yeah.
introduced to all of you guys.
You had just started.
Yeah, it's 19 years old.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it was an interesting journey. But it still seems like yesterday. I can't get over how quickly time goes. It's absolutely nuts. Now, I want to go back through a little bit of your history, but one of the
Sure.
things I want to lean into first is, and because this just seems to be an important theme, and I hope it's something that all the listeners pick up on, is the importance of outstanding coaches, mentors, people to guide you in your journey. Now, you already did one of what I believe is one of the most important investments that we could make, which is in a mentor, which is in a guide, which is in a coach. If we're embarking on any kind of new venture, it's one thing to figure things out the hard way, which I used to wear like a badge of honor until you realize it's just stupid to do things that way. It's like, why pay the dumb tax when I could go learn from somebody that already is really good at this thing that can teach me how to avoid paying the dumb tax and get to the success things faster, right? So
Absolutely. And I think
talk about
people,
that. Yeah.
yeah, I think that people, there's a sense of pride, especially when you're building your own business, especially when you're creating your own thing. I'm not the first guy to ever do this. You weren't the first guy to jump into the exercise world and now into what you're doing. It's amazing to me the amount of ego that if you leave behind, how fast you move forward. When you're willing to be open to receive information, whether it be good or bad, whether it be hard information or easy information, stuff you don't want to hear but need to hear, or stuff that you don't need to hear but hear anyways. When you're willing to accept that information and accept that position as a learner or a student, it is I am amazed how different my business works when I accept those kinds of people in my life. And what's interesting too is they change, right? You get a mentor that really kind of keys you into some of the early things that you need to know about this business or whatever business you're in. And then as that relationship grows, it becomes very clear pretty soon that they're repeating themselves or they're giving you the information that helped you early on. And so you need to start looking around for others. I think that coaching, mentoring, education, teaching, collaboration, accountability, I think those are all super important. And I think they're so underrated. It's like one of the very first things that I learned in business when I started asking questions of my mentors. What would be the one thing that people don't talk about that people need to talk about? And I hear time and time again, it's keep coaches and mentors and teachers close, because it's okay to ask questions. That's what we all need to know more about what we're doing. And we don't have all the answers. You're right. Beating your head against the wall. That's cool. You know, it's the thing about being a business owner is like, you want to do it on yourself. You want to pave the way. You want all the rewards and you'll get them, but you want to do it by yourself. And it's like, God, it's so much simpler. It's so much easier when you have some guidance and when you put yourself, but like I said, put your ego in check and say, hey, I actually don't know the answer to this. And I don't even know if I'm asking the right question, you know?
Oh yeah. That's critical too. You know, one, ego is the enemy. Two, I can think back to the number of stupid mistakes that I made that were largely driven by ego, but it was also the same challenges that I had to run into in order for somebody to speak up and call me on it or teach me something different. So as much as those times may have sucked, they were still necessary in my own growth and developmental journey. I just wish, if anything, or if I could share one thing, like you said, it's the power of mentorship and coaching and ongoing education that is so fundamentally important to becoming the best version of ourselves and making the greatest level of impact. And I don't think enough people lean into that discomfort. And you know, in education, like that's a really great point. Is I started thinking about this. I used to get really hyper focused on one thing. It was like I wanted to study, you know, this marketing and business, of course, and there's countless different disciplines in marketing, but you know, marketing and then sales and operational infrastructure and financials, and the list goes on. And I would get hyper focused on all things business. But the reality is, some of the best lessons that I've had have come from outside of the business. It was studying interpersonal relationships, behavioral psychology, um, going through coaching with my fiance and significant other on how we can improve and better enhance our communication. And that trickles down to how I show up for my kids and actually how I interact with other people. But just the main point that I want to get at there is the more that we can diversify the inputs, you know, the quality of information that we're taking in, the more that we'll be able to leverage, you know, all these different, the neuroplasticity, the different connections in our brain to see things that you wouldn't otherwise see. It's really easy to get myopic, but when we go a little bit wider, you actually get better, clearer on all those other singular points, like be it the marketing.
And I would agree. I think there are times when getting into the weeds is super important, and it's super, and it makes you understand a particular instance very well, so that if it comes up again, you are prepared, you have some knowledge. But I also think, like you said, to jump back and get that 30,000-foot view of things is also really key, because to know what's going on around you on a grander scale helps you be more open to these opportunities that you may not have seen because you were laser focused there.
Well, as forest of the trees, you know, we can't see You will
We know what
never
we
be
don't
able to
know.
analyze. Yeah, exactly. And you'll never be able to analyze your own business or life, actually, any area of your life, as effectively as an outside, unbiased third
Because you're
party.
so attached to yourself
Yeah.
that it's that ego is the enemy. It's also
Hmm.
your best friend and it keeps you safe. But you know what I mean?
When used properly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. You said something about showing up. I have a rule of 4 that I've talked about for years, and it was something that I talked about when we met, and it was something I preached at the chamber on a regular basis. But it's my rule of 4, and it's not my rule of 4, but it was adapted from through some reading that I did. Anyways, my rule of 4 is this, and this will fit really well into kind of what you were saying. Show
Hmm.
up, pay attention to what has heart and meaning, tell
Hmm.
the truth without blame or judgment, and be open to outcome, not attached to it. I think that attachment part of the outcome is where people feel like they haven't done right. They haven't hit their goals. They haven't succeeded. Oh, bullshit. You've succeeded. You just didn't succeed in the way that you thought you were going to see. You may have very well surpassed your succeeding, but you're so stuck on that expectation. It's a way of expectation. I lost expectations a long time ago. I mean, I expect certain things at certain times, but when it comes to my business, I have some certain milestones that I expect to hit. And they're pretty broad milestones to making them fairly easy to say, oh yeah, I got there. But I don't have any expectations beyond that.
Hmm. Yeah, when we can trade expectation for appreciation, your life will absolutely transform. And it's funny, you use two words that I literally have on sticky notes and on this kind of vision board that I have
Sure.
on my desktops. And one is detached, and the other is surrender. Because that has been one of my core focuses for the last couple of years is really learning to surrender, learning to become detached from the outcome. It's like one thing that my listeners have heard me say before, and maybe this will land a little bit differently today, but is be resolute in your outcomes, but flexible in your approach. There's all these shoulds. I should have done this. It should be here. I should have created this. I should have this financial future. And then, as I've said, it's like we tend to should all over ourselves. But when we surrender and start to realize that things are happening the way we're supposed to, I have a new lesson to learn, I have a new milestone to reach, then the entire experience in and of itself transforms. Um,
Absolutely.
one thing I would love to dive into, Drew, and I hadn't thought about this going this direction, but I think this is congruent. Is we talk about diversity in education, but I think it's equally as important to get diversification in our life experiences. And one of the things that you're doing is driving the bus. Now, one thing, and maybe you've thought about this consciously, maybe you haven't. I'm curious what lessons have come from that experience? Because I have to believe that there's a reason that you continue to do it and that it is fulfilling and contributing to your life and your own personal growth and development, and maybe in ways that you had never even thought of or anticipated. What has come from you from that experience? I think that's so important. We should
Yeah.
be pursuing different hobbies, different business ventures, everything. But speak to that if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a very good question in that why do I continue to do it?
Hmm.
And what experiences have I taken from that? First of all, I will say that if you would have told me 10 years ago, 15 years ago that I was going to be a school bus driver, I would have no, why on earth would I do that? And then life just happens, right? It unfolds. We go in directions and we don't know what around the corner. I got divorced. My job started shifting. I needed to change a lot of things, and this just appeared. And so I took it. So what lessons have I learned from it? I would have to say patience is a huge lesson, and the ability to separate what I'm doing from what's going on. I think is super important. My number one job is to transport children in a 40-foot vehicle to and from their homes to school.
Hmm.
Now, let's keep in mind that the middle schoolers and high schoolers are pretty checked out nowadays when they get on the bus. They get on the bus, I say good morning, and they're here.
Hmm.
Right? They're here. Good or bad, they're here. So those two are really easy. It's the elementary kids that don't have access to these screens yet that are on the bus and they are communicating. And they're not just communicating like you and I are. They're communicating as a mass entity. So they are loud. So how do I keep the ability to not listen and drive is my number one goal, my number one focus. I got to get them to and from. So it's taught me to be patient. It's taught me to be kind, because I don't know what happens right before they got on the bus, and I don't know what happens right when they get off the bus. But I know when they get on the bus, I'm the first person associated with the school that they see. And I want the school to be a good place for them. I want the school to be a place of learning, to be a place of social growth, to be a place where in some cases they get fed. They get fed food, but they also get fed love, and they get fed knowledge. So I'm the conduit, right? From home to school, I'm the first touch point. So it's my goal, it's my hope that first touch point and the last touch point is always good. And I think that I had bus drivers in my life, and every one of us can close our eyes and think of at least one good bus driver we had during our education as kids. We know that person, and you think of them from time to time. And I hope that I am that conduit, or that point of change in a good way. They see me and they smile. Oh, Mr. Drew, or, hey, bus driver Drew, or whatever. They come on and I say good morning and I say goodbye. Every single kid gets the same love. So that's one thing that was one lesson that I learned, is that regardless, that I am not in control of what happens to them before they get on the bus or after they get on the bus, but I am in complete control with what happens when they do get on. When they see me, I'm in control of that moment. And I'm hoping that I'm giving love. And I think that that's true for not only just as a school bus driver, but I think that that's true, that I'm learning that that's true in every single aspect of my life. The person at the checkout counter, my server, my mailman, the guy, my neighbor up the street. In that first moment, I can dictate how it's going to go if I present love, happiness, goodness. If I'm showing someone the respect that they deserve as a human being, I think that for me has made the hugest difference. And it started with my ability to control what happens to each kid that gets on my bus. That was a huge learning. That's why I do it. Oh, and bonus, my wife's a kindergarten teacher, so we get the same vacation days. We get summers off together. So it keeps us. Yeah, I know, dude. And what's really cool is as I'm a morning guy, so I get up bright and early. I'm up at like 4, and then I clock in at 6:15. I'm home by 9:30. I'm home here doing voiceover work till about 1, and I clock back in. I come back at 5, and we have dinner, and then I come back in here for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and bang out some more auditions and stuff.
That's awesome.
So it fits my life. I've found two things that afford me income, but I also feed my soul. Right. The kids, and driving. I sure do drive. I sure do like to drive that big bus. And I get to do this. I get to use my tool, my voice, as a moneymaker. So it works out.
That's amazing. I love those lessons too. And you're right. I hadn't even thought about it, but I wish I could remember her name. I could still see her face.
You can see her, and that's the important part.
It was like 35 years ago, but
yeah, dude. Yeah.
But we were the last stop too, because I remember mostly.
So you were the first stop getting on in the morning, or the last stop getting on in the morning?
Yeah, exactly. The last. Like, we were the last pickup at the. Well, actually, last either way. I think they usually picked everybody up on the way to us, and then turned around and went in, and then dropped everybody off, and then
dropped
we were last.
Oh wow! Yeah. So you spent some good quality time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I just remember because there was times where, mom and dad, somebody would forget something, and, she'd sit there with us. And I mean, we were way out chucking it, which, it felt like the middle of nowhere when you're a little kid. Yeah. So it was different. I love those lessons though, because, it reminds me, there was somebody I was interviewing just a short while ago, and she implanted this idea that I loved. And it was so simple. It was, just imagine every time you walk into gas station, grocery store, I mean, anywhere you're going.
Sure.
If you just take a moment to imagine a halo over each of these people's heads, all of a sudden the dynamic, the energy shifts just by virtue of the fact that you're getting outside of yourself. Yep. And you start to create a different depth and breadth of relationships. And this is something that, to me, I'm really focused on, because I am a pattern I've noticed in myself, and this is me being vulnerable a bit here in the moment, is I'm a very outgoing person. Like, I mean, I
I
love
didn't get that from you at all.
conversation with people. I'm like the one that'll be the butterfly around the room.
Yep. Yep.
However, initially, I'm the one that's hiding in the corner until somebody starts a conversation with me. And when I'm out and about, I tend to be a lot more stoic, I think,
Sure.
and not as warm and friendly. I think I get more in my head. And I'm really trying to practice detaching, focusing on upping my energy, putting a big smile on my face, welcoming people, imagining the halo over their head. Because, it feels better when you see
Yeah.
other people light up and you just have that, even if it's a brief moment of connection. But two, I don't want to walk through life with that
Yeah. Blank
health
stare.
palette. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, let's
It's
bring
not
some
this.
energy to it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I completely hear you 100%. And I am with you on the going in. If I walk into a room, I used to do this, and it's good or bad. It was who I am, who I was, who I am. I would walk into a room and I would make an effort to touch as many people as I knew in that room. Not touch, but it's go.
Mhm.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you. And my wife's like, we walk into a room together, and I lose you for like 20 minutes, and I want you to be around, and I need you by my side. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. She goes, how about this? How about, rather than you going into the room and being the center of attention, how about you let people come to you? And it was and it, first of all, it really hurt my feelings when she said, I'm like, well, no, it's who I am, it's what I do. She goes, no, I don't think it's really who you are. And it wasn't a diss, it was an observation from someone who cared about me and wanted me to know something. And I will tell you that the relationships that I have now with those people, when I walk into a room, we still see each other, but it's not as disingenuous. And I don't mean that it's not as shallow, it's not as me trying to be seen. It's
Mhm.
the relationships that come to me now are mean more to me,
Hmm.
because
That's
I,
interesting.
yeah, isn't that
Mhm.
weird? And I
Mhm.
and I almost, when my wife said it to me, I was almost a little off put by it. But I'm like, okay, yeah, I understand. I've always been kind of a butterfly, like you just said, and
Yeah.
we go into these places, and I would challenge you to keep smiling
Yeah.
and to keep being who you are, and put those halos on those people, but but don't slink into a corner, but just let the people come to you. And I think that you'll find that the people who come to you regularly are the people who really you engage with on a much higher plane.
Mhm.
People will come to you, but those people who will come to you naturally and quickly are those
Mhm.
ones that will probably have that will probably like energy, and give you, fill you more, fill your bucket more.
I like that. That's a great tip because you're right, and I like the word choice that you use. Disingenuous, and not in a malicious way, but
Yeah, not at all.
it's just that forced, like we're supposed to go talk to the people, and then instead of it just feeling like genuine excitement, like, hey, there's Drew, I want to go say hi to him.
Yeah,
It's like I
exactly.
have to versus I want to. Maybe that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't
Yeah.
have to go say, but there will be people who I walk in the room with, and I make a beeline for them, even to this day, because
Mhm.
I love them. I love being around them.
Mhm.
We connect on a different level, but it's the other folks that I like, and we're colleagues and we're acquaintances, that I used to make an effort to go and be seen, and I don't have to do that anymore, and that's
Yeah.
okay. And
Mhm.
that was a big one for me too. It's okay not to be who you think you should be, because who you think you should be probably isn't the real you,
Yeah. Yeah. Identity
in
is a
my
deep
opinion.
conversation. I can get into
Yeah,
that
that's, yeah,
happily.
exactly.
I
One
love that.
one of the things that you had said earlier was, you had talked about mentors and stuff, and I will say that it's important, I think, to have people who in that are health related, mental health related people in your life. And I think it's okay. It's really okay to see someone on the reg.
Mhm.
And I think it's one of those things that some people, I don't have any problems. I'm all right. I'm not crazy. It's not that at all. Sometimes it's really nice to walk into a room, close the door, and just vomit everything that you're thinking about in your head. When you talked about earlier about your face, just, I don't want to be that anymore, I want to be happy guy. Well, your brain is just always on fire, and yours in particular, because you're a thinker, you're a doer, you're this is you. This has always been you.
Mm-hmm.
And your brain moves at that rate of speed. And I think sometimes it's okay to shut that thing off and just let your mouth open up and talk. And it's really good. People are trained to help you, to help guide you. And so
I
mentors,
think
coaches,
that's very true.
and therapists, I think a therapist in your life is an important part to being super successful or very highly successful.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think one of the reasons why I think that becomes so fundamentally important is, the simple reality is we all know that we think on average somewhere between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day, and that the vast majority of those, like 95% plus, are negative. And the reality is these aren't 65, 70, 80,000 new thoughts. They're the same freaking thoughts that are being played on repeat like a broken record. So if you don't take the time to go find someone to speak to, be it coach, therapist, mentor, any combination of, then you're playing that broken record. So the best way to interrupt that pattern, put a giant scratch in that record so it won't be playback anymore, is go unload, like you say, with somebody, the professional help that's there to help you process so you can create a more empowering story. A record that is actually going to help propel you and move you forward and create more joy and fulfillment and all the happiness and good things in your life. So beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Repetition in that process, particularly when it's negative, is it doesn't do anybody any favors, but you're so right. We're so stuck in that realm, in that process, in that pattern. And to break that pattern is not easy, man. It takes a lot of fucking work. Pardon me. It takes a lot of work to do that. And it takes a willingness to understand that hey, these are real thoughts. This is my reality in this moment. These aren't made up thoughts. And then go ahead and figure out, okay, how do I disassociate with those? How do I release those? How do I get rid of those so that I can have more room for new, so I can have more room for good? One of the things I say to the kids every single day, all ages, on my bus, it's even actually printed up just above me on the sidewall, so you can see it when you step up into the bus, is see the good, be the good. Because there is good in everything. Even in those moments where it's dark and despair, there is good. You have to look really hard for it. You have to be willing to look hard for it. And in some cases, if you really think that there's not good in a moment, then you're probably not alone in that moment. So then be the good that someone else sees.
I love it. But again, so here's a really simple strategy. So one, you ask the question that you just said. When I walk into that room, when I'm having a conversation with that person, particularly if it's a difficult person, you ask, what's good in this?
Yeah.
Or in the situation that you're challenged, that you're dealing with, the problem, like no matter how monumental, ask yourself the question, what's good in this? And also afford yourself the patience to wait for an answer, because your brain initially is probably going to be like, nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Or I want the answer now. What's the answer? It's like, dude, slow down, because you're going to get the answer. It might be today. It might be a year from now, but you'll get the answer.
Exactly. Yep. No. So what's good in this? And if you're dealing with a particularly difficult person, one of the things that can be a really powerful question is, okay, maybe you're not finding something that you find particularly appealing about the person. What can you appreciate about them? Maybe it's the veracity with which they're approaching the conversation, the depth and level of the belief that they have around it.
Yeah.
Even if it's in a disagreement with you, what can you appreciate about the way that they are showing up, about who they are, about the things that they are saying? Again, find what's good in it. And all of a sudden, that energetic shift will start to allow you to see, hear, and feel more and have a different conversation. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like that, even in those moments that are super uncomfortable and you want to disassociate. I love that you say, just find something that's positive, or find something that's good in this moment. And that's what I mean. You just see the good. The good's there. You just got to find it, and you have to be willing to find it. I think too. I think that's really important. You have to be okay with surrendering your belief structure for a moment to then re-engage with it.
Yep. Well, and then, to your point earlier too, it's like the self-education, becoming aware, growth. I mean, any context, the reality is it's not like there's these, set destinations, like you just reach enlightenment. It's an ongoing process. Like it never stops. People frequently hear me say new level, new level in business, new level in your own development,
Yeah.
new level in your health, your relationship, like in every single context. So as long as we're striving for embetterment while also appreciating where we are, that will completely transform
And
experiences.
I think people forget that too. In the effort, in the instance, in the desire to propel forward, you got to stop sometimes,
Mhm.
and you got to sit, have a rest, reflect on where you've been to come, and think about where you're going, then stand back up and start the journey again. Because
Yep.
I think when you lose sight of who you were, it lessens the growth forward. You're not appreciative. Now you're just desiring more, or you're wanting more. It's like, well, why am I wanting? Well, because remember what you had before, or where you came from, or what you didn't know. Well, now you're learning these things, or now you're acquiring these things, whether it be wealth or knowledge, or whatever the case may be.
Now, Drew, I want to shift gears for our last few
Sure.
minutes here and make sure that we take some time to explore a little bit deeper your skill set. I would love if you talk to the audience a bit about voiceovers, different use cases. Like, why would somebody hire you for a voiceover? Where might is this all going to be used for commercials on TV or radio, or like what are the potential use cases where somebody should go, hey, I need Drew? When might they consider you? Who's it most often for? Just kind of paint a picture for us
Sure.
of what it
Sure.
looks like.
Sure. It's the very topical, the place to start is think about anything, whether it broadcast, whether it be on radio, on television, in movies, online, in your earbuds, on wherever.
Podcast.
Podcast. If there is spoken word, odds are there is some type of voice acting or actor or voice over usage going on. Explainer videos, how-to videos. I think people always think about commercials, Super Bowl commercials or just commercials in general. Well, yeah, there's also, we educate educators. We teach doctors how to do surgery. We explain how to fish. You name it, we can do it. Whether it's an IVR message, which is an interactive voice recording, like when you call, hi, you've reached so and so. Please press 2. Those are all things I do. Audiobooks, cartoons, video games, you name it. There's so many opportunities for voiceover. It becomes almost overwhelming. So as an actor and a voiceover actor, it's like, okay, well, what are my hobbies? What do I enjoy? And also, who's hiring me? So I put a voice demo out, right? I create a couple of commercials, and I put it out. I do a couple of promos, like I would do something like Tuesday night on NBC, those kinds of things, or do radio promos. This is KPUG or whatever the case. And I do a couple of different sets of promos, and then we'll see. And then I put them out there. I put them out there on the interwebs, and I hustle, and I call, and I make contact with people. And I utilize my time. About 95% of what I do is marketing and branding. 5% is actually doing voice work.
Oh, interesting. Talk a little bit more about that. Like what, there's a couple things I'm curious about. Is there a particular, of all the list of things that you can do, is there one, two, three, a handful that you enjoy doing the most? Or you feel like
I think
utilize your skill set?
Yeah, I think that explainer videos are really good. Corporate narration is really good. So like if you're doing something at a conference, and you have a 90-second clip that's showing a new product or service, the voice behind there, if you don't want to do it, or whomever you're working with, your colleagues, your partners don't want to do it, then they would hire someone like me to do it. And that is fun, because I get to showcase things for the first time. I get to highlight things for the first time in a lot of cases. And I also get to share moments of celebration with people at these corporate levels. I do pretty well on those. Explainer videos are a lot of fun. I've done explainer videos for John Deere. I've done stuff for plumbing companies and lighting companies and electrical companies, to where I educate employees and professionals on what to do and to think. And there's some acting involved, right? Because they give me the words to say, but I say them in such a way that they think that I'm just one of them. And that's a good piece of work right there.
It's a powerful skill set too. And I think that's really important. And I want to highlight
I'm believable, right? I'm believable.
Exactly.
I sound authoritative, and that's important. Yeah.
I have never done that.
You get so excited. Excited.
I have never done that once in a podcast interview, and now I've done it twice in a day. That I'm like just way too animated with you on here. But I think that's really important. Is one thing I want to highlight and encourage the audience to consider is, if you haven't, where could you or should you consider using Drew or somebody that's a voiceover professional? Because I think, and this comes back to what we were talking about earlier with the ego and stuff too, where, we can think this is our baby. I need to deliver it. You want to have that sense of ownership over it, but are you the right person? And this is the royal you. People should be asking themselves this. Are you the right person to really convey this message or represent this product or service or this announcement or this thing in a way that is going to be the most compelling, that's going to draw people in? Because the proper use of tonality and body language and tempo and cadence are so important in communication. And for some of us, it comes very naturally. For others, for a lot of people, it doesn't. And then there's also the opportunity to develop and enhance those skill sets. You have an acting background, and of course you've done improvisation, and all of these things contribute to your expert level ability to be able to convey and communicate ideas in a way that really draw people in. And so I would really encourage people to ask that question more often. While I can do this, is it going to have the same depth and breadth of impact as if I were to bring on somebody that this is what they do for a living?
Yeah, exactly. And what's interesting too, aside from the VO, thank you. That's very nice of you. But aside from the VO, that question in and of itself, am I the one best suited to do this? The best bosses, the best leaders in business hire people who do it the best. You know what I mean? And people are amazed.
Better than they do.
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. Don't be afraid to hire that stuff out. And that's another thing that I became a much better employer when I learned that I'm not the best at everything. And
that took me a while.
It's again, that ego, right? That ego gets in the way. So I hire some stuff out that I'm just not good at. And I'm
I love that. I love that. Well, my friend, this has been an absolute pleasure. To the audience, thank you guys for spending your time with us on the Perpetual Growth Podcast. A big shout out to my friend Drew Graham for bringing so much value to today's conversation. Drew, where can our listeners connect with you if they want to learn more about what you're working on, how they might be able to bring you on for some voiceovers or any of the plethora of services that you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really easy. It's Drew Graham, DrewGrahamVO.com. That's the best place to find me.
Awesome. Amazing. And we'll make sure that we have that link in the show notes so you guys don't have to search for anything. Now, if this episode sparked something for you, don't keep it to yourself. Be sure to share it, subscribe, leave us a 5-star review to help us reach even more people on their growth journey. And remember, growth doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choice. We'll see you next time.